Charity was born into comfort so deep that struggle sounded like a foreign word to her. From the day she opened her eyes to the world, life had been soft, smooth, and ready-made. She lived in a large city house that stood proudly among other fine buildings, but hers always looked louder. The paint was fresh, the compound was wide, and the gate opened like it knew the people inside were important. Inside that house, nothing waited to be done. Everything was already done. Abeg oh, let's calm down oh. You see that chilled bottle of Coke beside you, eh? Use am cool down. Our speed is too much oh. Charity did not grow up learning how to wash her own clothes or clean her own room. She did not know how to sweep a floor or make her bed. Those things were handled by the many maids who moved around the house quietly like shadows. If Charity wanted water, she did not stand up. She shouted. If her uniform was not ironed well, she shouted louder. If food was late by a few minutes, she complained as if the world was ending. She was still in secondary school, but she behaved like someone who owned the world. Her voice was sharp, and her words carried weight because people feared her reaction. Even adults avoided crossing her path. She enjoyed ordering people around. It made her feel powerful. It made her feel important. "Why is my breakfast cold?" she once yelled, pushing the plate in me. A maid rushed forward, shaking. "Sorry, madam, I will warm it." Charity rolled her eyes and clicked her tongue. "If you know you can do the job well, leave it for someone else." The maid said nothing. She only nodded and picked the plate. Charity felt satisfied. To her, that was normal behavior. That was how life worked when you had money. At school, Charity carried that same attitude. She attended a good secondary school in the city, one that many parents prayed their children would enter. The classrooms were clean, the teachers were trained, and discipline was expected. But Charity acted like those rules were for others, not for her. She came late to school almost every day. When teachers questioned her, she smiled and walked past them. When she was punished, her parents were called, and somehow the punishment always disappeared. Charity noticed this pattern early, and it gave her confidence to misbehave more. In class, she slept with her head on the desk. Sometimes she used her phone under the table, scrolling and smiling while lessons went on. When teachers asked her questions, she laughed it off. "Sir, I forgot," she would say casually. Her grades dropped, but she did not care. She believed school was a waste of time. She believed money would open any door she needed later in life. Her classmates whispered about her. Some envied her lifestyle, others disliked her deeply. But Charity noticed none of that. She lived in her own bubble. Back at home, her parents watched helplessly. Mr. Okori was a respected man in the city. People greeted him with honor. In church, he held an important position. He spoke about good morals, discipline, and humility. His wife, Mrs. Okori, was equally respected. She was known for her calm nature and gentle advice. Together, they looked like a perfect couple raising a perfect child. But behind closed doors, they worried. Mrs. Okori often sat alone in the evening thinking about her daughter. She remembered Charity as a sweet little girl who loved bedtime stories and hugs. Somewhere along the line, that child disappeared. "Good evening, Mommy," Charity would say without stopping, her eyes glued to her phone. Sometimes she didn't even greet at all. Mrs. Okori tried many times to talk to her. She tried calm conversations, she tried warnings, she tried emotional talks. "Charity, this life you are living is not good," she once said. Charity scoffed. "Mommy, please, everyone is fine. You worry too much." Those words hurt more than insults. Mr. Okori noticed the change too. He noticed how visitors looked uncomfortable around Charity. He noticed how maids quit often. He noticed the whispers in church. One Sunday, after service, a woman pulled Mrs. Okori aside. "Madam," she said carefully, "your daughter is beautiful, but you need to watch her character." Mrs. Okori forced a smile, but inside her heart sank. The shame was heavy. That night, she cried quietly so Charity would not hear. Charity, on her part, felt untouchable. She believed her parents' status protected her. She believed nothing serious would ever happen to her. She laughed loudly, bossed people around, and ignored advice. One afternoon, a family friend visited. During the visit, Charity insulted the woman openly over a small issue about sitting space. "Why are you sitting there?" Charity snapped. The room went silent. The woman looked shocked. Mr. Okori stood up immediately. "Charity," he called sharply. Charity frowned. "What?" "Apologize now." She shrugged. "For what?" That moment broke something inside Mr. Okori. The disrespect was too much. After the visitor left, he called Charity to the sitting room. "Sit down," he said firmly. She sat with a bored look. "Your behavior is a problem," he said slowly. "You have no respect for anyone." Charity laughed bitterly. "Daddy, you are exaggerating." That laugh felt like a slap. Mrs. Okori covered her face. Mr. Okori's voice shook. "You embarrass us everywhere. Do you think money can cover bad character?" Charity stood up angrily. "I'm tired of this talk." She walked out, slamming the door. That night, her parents talked for hours. They talked about their mistakes. They talked about how they had spoiled her. They talked about fear. Fear of losing their daughter to pride and laziness. One solution stood out heavy, but clear. Boarding school. Mrs. Okori was afraid. "She will hate us." Mr. Okori sighed. "But she might learn, and if she doesn't, we will have failed her." Outside, the city lights shone brightly. Inside, a decision was made. Charity's life was about to change in a way she never expected. She slept peacefully that night, not aware that her comfort was about to be challenged. Respectable parents, hidden shame. The decision did not bring peace immediately. In fact, after Mr. and Mrs. Okori agreed on boarding school, a heavy silence settled in their room. It was the kind of silence that comes when you know you are about to hurt someone you love, even if it's for their own good. Mrs. Okori lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, her mind replaying Charity's childhood again and again, wondering where everything went wrong. By morning, Charity woke up cheerful, humming as she brushed her teeth. She had no idea that her life was about to shift. She came downstairs late as usual, scrolling through her phone, barely greeting anyone. "Mommy, what's for breakfast?" she asked, dropping into her seat. Mrs. Okori watched her closely. The girl looked innocent in that moment, relaxed and careless. It almost made her change her mind, almost. She served breakfast quietly, her hands shaking a little. Mr. Okori cleared his throat. "Charity, we need to talk later today." Charity barely looked up. "About what?" "Something important," he said. Charity shrugged. "Okay." That calm response made the parents exchange a glance. They knew what was coming would not be calm at all. Later that evening, Charity was called into the sitting room. This time, both parents sat upright, serious faces, no soft smiles. Charity sensed the tension and frowned. "Why do you both look like this?" she asked, folding her arms. Mr. Okori spoke first. "Charity, we have decided that you'll be going to a boarding school next term." The words hung in the air like smoke. Charity laughed at first, a sharp, short laugh. "Very funny," she said. "You scared me for nothing." Mrs. Okori held her head slowly. "We are not joking." Charity's smile faded. "What do you mean boarding school?" "A good one," Mr. Okori replied. "One with discipline." Charity's eyes widened. "No, I'm not going anywhere." Mrs. Okori stood up. "Charity, sit down." Charity slammed her hand on the table. "You can't do this to me. I'm not a village girl." That sentence cut deep. Mr. Okori's face hardened. "Watch your words." Charity laughed bitterly. "So you want to punish me because of what people say in church?" Mrs. Okori's voice broke. "We are trying to save you." "Save me from what?" Charity shouted. "Comfort? A good life?" Tears rolled down Mrs. Okori's cheeks. "From becoming someone you will hate later." Charity turned away, her heart pounding. She felt betrayed. She felt like the ground beneath her feet was shaking. She stormed out of the room and locked herself in her bedroom, crying loudly, throwing pillows and shoes around. That night, the house was restless. Charity cried herself to sleep. Her parents prayed silently, asking for strength. In the days that followed, Charity refused to talk properly. She answered with short replies. She ignored her parents. When she heard the word boarding, she exploded. "You are ruining my life," she shouted one morning. Mrs. Okori hugged her gently. Sometimes love looks like pain first. Charity pushed her away. "I hate you." Those words hurt with Mrs. Okori all day, heavy and painful. Preparations began quietly. Forms were filled, phone calls were made. The school chosen was known far and wide, a boarding school with strong rules, high standards, and a reputation that scared even stubborn children. One name kept coming up during the discussions: Sapile House, and one woman attached to that name, Mrs. Ofomanta. Parents spoke about her in low tones. She doesn't joke, she trains children, she fears no one. The stories were many. Charity overheard some of these conversations and laughed. "They can't change me," she said confidently to herself. On the day of departure, the atmosphere was heavy. Charity packed her bags angrily, complaining loudly. "Why so many clothes?" she asked. "Am I going to prison?" No one answered. At the school gate, Charity stepped out of the car and froze. The buildings were tall, old, and serious looking. No flashy colors, no smiling posters, just order. Students walked in straight lines. No noise, no laughter. Charity felt a strange fear creep into her chest. Mrs. Okori hugged her tightly. "Remember who you are." Charity did not hug back. "You will regret this." Mr. Okori nodded slowly. "One day you will understand." Behind them, the city faded. Ahead of Charity, a new world waited, one that would not bend to her pride. Boarding school shock. Mrs. Ofomanta did not raise her voice, yet every word she spoke landed with weight. Charity noticed that immediately as she followed the woman across the compound. The woman walked with calm confidence, not rushing, not dragging her feet either. Her wrapper was neatly tied, her blouse simple, and her hair was fully covered. Nothing about her looked flashy, yet everything about her commanded attention. "Carry your box properly," Mrs. Ofumanta said without turning back. Charity struggled with the heavy box, already annoyed. At home, 3 people would have lifted it for her. Here, nobody moved. Students passed by, some sneaking curious glances at the new girl, others focused straight ahead as if looking around was forbidden. "Madame," Charity muttered under her breath, "they should have given us trolley." Mrs. Ofmanta stopped walking. She turned slowly and looked at Charity, not angry, just studying her face. "What did you say?" Charity swallowed. "Nothing." Mrs. Ofmanta nodded. "Good. Because this is not a hotel. This is Sapele House." The name alone sounded heavy. Charity felt something drop inside her stomach. They arrived at a long building with clean floors and straight windows. The smell of disinfectant filled the air. Inside, everything was arranged neatly. Beds were laid in perfect rows. Trunks were placed uniformly at the foot of each bed. Not a single shoe was out of line. Mrs. Ofmanta pointed to a bed close to the door. "That is yours." Charity frowned. "Why near the door?" "So you can learn to wake up fast," Mrs. Ofmanta replied. Charity opened her mouth to argue but stopped herself. Something about the woman's eyes told her it was useless. "Change into your housewear. Assembly starts in 10 minutes," Mrs. Ofomanta said and walked away. 10 minutes? Charity panicked. At home, she took her time. Here, time seemed to run. She rushed to open her box, throwing clothes everywhere. Other girls watched quietly. Some looked amused. One girl, slim and short, leaned toward her. "Better be fast," she whispered. "Auntie doesn't joke." Charity rolled her eyes. "She's not my auntie." The girl chuckled softly. "You will soon understand." Assembly was strict. Everyone stood straight. No noise, no laughter. When Mrs. Ofmanta walked past, even seniors stiffened. Charity felt out of place, her body aching from standing still. Later that night, Charity expected rest. Instead, a bell rang. "Prep time," someone announced. Charity groaned. What kind of suffering is this? She dragged herself to the prep hall. Silence filled the room. Books opened, pens moved. Charity stared at her book, confused and tired. At home, she never studied this long. Days passed and the shock grew deeper. Charity was given duties, sweeping, washing plates, arranging beds. The first time she was told to sweep the dormitory, she laughed. "You must be joking," she said to the prefect. The prefect smiled sadly. "I'm not." Charity refused. That was her first offense. Mrs. Offmanta called her aside. "Why didn't you sweep?" Charity folded her arms. "I don't do that." Mrs. Offmanta nodded. "You will." She was punished. Extra duties, no excuses. Charity cried that night quietly, so others wouldn't hear. She missed her bed. She missed her freedom. She missed shouting and being obeyed. She tried her old tricks, talking back, rolling eyes, complaining loudly. None worked. Each time, punishment followed. Each time, she learned. One afternoon, Charity insulted a junior student over a bucket. The girl cried. Mrs. Offmanta appeared like she had been watching the whole time. "Apologize," she said. Charity shook her head. She was slow. Mrs. Offmanta's face remained calm. "Apologize." "I won't." That refusal earned her the toughest punishment yet. Kneeling under the sun for hours, sweeping the compound later, missing lunch. Students whispered. Some laughed. Some felt pity. During punishment, Charity noticed something strange. Mrs. Offmanta watched from a distance, not with anger, but with something else. Concern? Charity pushed the thought away. Weeks turned into months. Slowly, very slowly, things began to change. Charity learned how to make her bed. She learned how to wash clothes properly. She learned to wake up early. One evening, after completing her duties quietly, Mrs. Offmanta called her. "You are improving," she said simply. Charity froze. No one had praised her in a long time. "Thank you, ma," she replied softly. That night, Charity lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling. For the first time, she felt something new. Not anger, not pride, awareness. She realized she had been wrong. But growth is not instant. Some days she slipped, some days she argued. Each time, discipline followed. Each time, she learned. One rainy evening, Charity fell sick. Fever, weakness. Mrs. Offmanta personally brought her food. "Eat," she said softly. Charity looked at her, confused. You care?" Mrs. Offmanta smiled faintly. "Discipline without care is cruelty." Tears filled her eyes. She turned away quickly. From that day, her heart softened. She started helping others. She greeted people. She listened. Laughter returned, this time gentle, real. The proud city girl was learning village patience. She was learning that respect was earned, not forced. And though she didn't know it yet, this was only the beginning of her true transformation. Discipline, tears, and laughter. By the time Charity entered her second term at the boarding school, something inside her had shifted, though she did not yet have the right words to explain it. The sharp anger that once lived in her chest had grown quieter, like a loud radio finally turned down. It was still there sometimes, but it no longer controlled every move. The bell rang at 5 in the morning, and instead of groaning and dragging herself out of bed, Charity sat up almost immediately. She rubbed her eyes, stretched her arms, and reached for her bucket. Around her, other girls moved calmly. No rushing, no shouting. The dormitory felt different to her now. It no longer looked like a prison, it looked like a place where people shared life. As she swept the floor that morning, she caught her reflection in the window glass. Her face looked slimmer, her eyes looked clearer. She paused for a moment, staring at herself. "So, this is me now," she whispered. She almost laughed. Charity was still Charity. She still liked nice things. She still enjoyed attention. But the way she expressed herself had changed. She said please more often. She said sorry without choking on the word. The juniors no longer ran away from her. Some even greeted her cheerfully. "Good morning, Senior Charity," one small girl said one day. Charity smiled. "Good morning. Did you finish your prep?" The girl excitedly nodded. Charity felt something warm spread through her chest. It felt better than shouting. It felt better than power. Mrs. Ofumanta noticed these small changes even before Charity did. She noticed how Charity volunteered to help without being told. She noticed how she corrected others gently instead of harshly. She noticed how she stayed back after duties to help slower students. One afternoon, during inspection, Mrs. Ofumanta stopped in front of Charity's locker. She opened it slowly. Everything inside was neatly arranged. Clothes folded well, shoes aligned. She closed it and looked at Charity. Well done. The words were simple, but they landed deeply. Charity felt her throat tighten. Thank you, ma, she replied softly. That night, Charity lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling. For the first time, she felt something new. Not anger, not pride, awareness. She realized she had been wrong. But growth is not instant. Some days she slipped, some days she argued. Each time, discipline followed. Each time, she learned. One rainy evening, Charity fell sick, fever, weakness. Mrs. Ofumata personally brought her food. Eat, she said softly. Charity looked at her, confused. You care? Mrs. Ofumata smiled faintly. Discipline without care is cruelty. Tears filled her eyes. She turned away quickly. From that day, her heart softened. She started helping others. She greeted people. She listened. Laughter returned, this time gentle, real. The proud city girl was learning village patience. She was learning that respect was earned, not forced. And though she didn't know it yet, this was only the beginning of her true transformation. Discipline, tears, and laughter. By the time Charity entered her, Charity hesitated. Then words poured out. I'm tired of rules. I'm tired of pretending. I was not born for this life. Mrs. Ofumanta listened without interrupting. When Charity finished, she leaned back slightly. Do you think discipline removes who you are? She asked. Charity shrugged. When water is dirty, Mrs. Ofumanta continued, you don't throw away the pot, you wash it. Those words stayed with Charity long after she returned to her seat. The next major test came during inter-house chores week. Each house was expected to clean large sections of the school. It was stressful. Tempers rose, arguments broke out. Charity was appointed as a group leader. The old Charity would have shouted. She would have insulted people. She would have enjoyed the authority. This time, she hesitated. Okay, she said to her group, let's finish this together so we can rest. Some girls looked surprised. A junior whispered, is this Charity? Work started slowly. A junior spilled water by mistake. Another girl snapped at her. Charity stepped in. It's okay, she said. Let's clean it and move on. That moment changed something. The group worked harder. Laughter followed. Even jokes flew around. Remember when Auntie nearly fainted because of soap smell? One girl joked. Charity laughed. Real laughter. The kind that came from peace, not mockery. They finished early. Mrs. Ofumanta came to inspect and nodded approvingly. You handled them well, she said. Charity smiled shyly. But not everyone was happy about Charity's change. A senior girl named Blessing watched her closely. Blessing had enjoyed being feared before Charity arrived. Now, Charity's quiet respect was drawing attention. One afternoon, Blessing cornered Charity behind the dormitory. You think you are special now? Blessing sneered. Charity took a deep breath. I'm just trying to do better. Blessing laughed. You think acting humble will save you? Charity said nothing. She walked away. Blessing spread rumors. She mocked Charity openly. One day, she poured water on Charity's bed. The old Charity would have fought. She would have screamed. This time, she stood still, her hands shaking. Mrs. Ofumanta was informed. Both girls were called. Blessing expected Charity to lash out. Charity surprised everyone. I don't know why she's angry, she said quietly, but I forgive her. Silence filled the room. Mrs. Ofumanta looked at Blessing. Anger hides pain, she said. Blessing broke down crying.
the story came out. Pressure, fear, jealousy. That day, Charity learned something powerful. Kindness could disarm even the hardest heart. As months passed, Charity's academic performance improved. She asked questions, she studied, she failed sometimes, but she tried again. When holiday approached, Charity felt mixed emotions: excitement, fear. Would her parents recognize this new version of her? The day they arrived to pick her up, Charity stood straight, her bag packed neatly. Mrs. Okore stepped out of the car and froze. "Is that my daughter?" she whispered. Charity smiled and walked toward her. "Good afternoon, Mommy," she said clearly. Mrs. Okore hugged her tightly, tears flowing freely. Mr. Okore watched quietly, his eyes wet. On the drive home, Charity talked about school, about duties, about Mrs. Ofomanta. "She's strict," she said, smiling, "but she cares." That night, as Charity helped clear the table without being asked, her parents looked at each other. The pain had been worth it. And far away in Sapele House, Mrs. Ofomanta smiled quietly, knowing the seed she planted was growing strong. Time passes, character returns. Time has a way of proving whether change is real or just an act. For Charity, the real test did not come immediately. It came slowly, quietly, through months turning into years, through moments when no one was watching closely, through choices made when it would have been easier to return to her old ways. After that first holiday break, Charity returned to school with a different mindset. This time, she walked through the gate of Sapele House without dragging her feet. She greeted the security man. She greeted the matron. When she saw Mrs. Ofomanta standing near the dormitory, Charity stopped and bowed slightly. "Good evening, ma." Mrs. Ofomanta studied her face as usual. "Welcome." That was all she said, but Charity felt proud. Not proud in the loud, childish way she used to feel, but in a calm, steady way that settled in her chest. Back in the dormitory, girls gathered around her bed. "City girl is back," one joked. Charity laughed. "I hear village girls missed me." Everyone laughed. The sound felt warm, friendly, no fear in it. As the term went on, Charity became someone others leaned on. Juniors came to her for advice. Seniors trusted her with responsibilities. When conflicts arose, she was often called to help calm things down. One evening, a junior named Ifunanywa sat on Charity's bed, crying quietly. "What happened?" Charity asked gently. "She said I'm stupid," the girl sniffed, "that I'll never pass." Charity felt a sharp memory flash in her mind. She remembered being the one who spoke like that. She placed a hand on the girl's shoulder. "Listen to me," she said softly. "Grades don't define you. Effort does. And you're not stupid." Those words sounded familiar, almost like something Mrs. Ofomanta would say. Charity smiled to herself. Academically, Charity surprised everyone, including herself. She began to rank among the top students, not because she suddenly became the smartest, but because she became consistent. She read even when she was tired. She asked for help when she didn't understand. She stopped pretending she knew everything. One during prize giving day, Charity's name was called, not for neatness, not for conduct, but for academic improvement and leadership. She walked to the front slowly, heart pounding. As she collected the award, her eyes searched the crowd and landed on Mrs. Ofomanta. The woman nodded once. Charity felt tears sting her eyes. After the ceremony, Mrs. Ofomanta called her aside. "You see," she said calmly, "hard work speaks." Charity nodded. "Thank you, ma." "No," Mrs. Ofomanta replied. "Thank yourself." That night, Charity wrote a letter to her parents. Not a rushed message, a real letter. She apologized for her past behavior. She thanked them for not giving up on her. When Mrs. Okore read it, she cried openly. Mr. Okore read it twice, then folded it carefully and kept it in his drawer. Years passed. Charity grew taller. Her voice matured. Her thinking deepened. By her final year in secondary school, she was no longer just a student, she was a role model. New students had stories about her. "They say she was once very proud," one whispered. Another shook her head. "Hard to believe, she's so calm." Charity heard those whispers sometimes and smiled quietly. She did not deny her past. She did not hide it. She used it. One afternoon, the school organized a character talk for new students. Mrs. Ofomanta surprised everyone by calling Charity to the front. "Tell them your story," she said simply. Charity froze. Her heart raced. She looked at the rows of young faces staring at her. She took a deep breath. "I wasn't always like this," she began. "I used to think respect was something people owed me. I was wrong." The hall was silent. "I learned the hard way that character matters more than comfort, and change is possible even when it feels painful." Some students nodded. Some looked thoughtful. Mrs. Ofomanta watched quietly, her face unreadable. That day, Charity felt complete. Not perfect, but complete. After graduation, Charity returned home for good. The city looked the same, but she saw it differently now. The house still stood tall. The gate still opened wide, but Charity no longer walked in like a queen expecting servants. She greeted the maids properly. She helped in the kitchen. At first, everyone thought she was pretending. "This one will soon stop," a maid whispered. But Charity did not stop. One evening, a maid accidentally broke a plate. She shook in fear, waiting for shouting. Charity picked up the pieces calmly. "It's okay," she said. "Are you hurt?" The maid stared at her, shocked. Mr. and Mrs. Okore watched these changes daily, quietly thanking God. In church, people noticed too. "That girl has changed," someone whispered. "Yes," another replied. "Boarding school did wonders." Charity did not let the praise get into her head. She remembered where she came from. Years later, Charity returned to Sapele House, not as a student, but as a guest speaker. She stood at the gate and smiled, memories flooding back, the fear, the tears, the growth. Mrs. Ofomanta walked towards her, slower now, but still strong. "You came back," she said. "I had to," Charity replied. "You changed my life." Mrs. Ofomanta shook her head. "No, you chose to change." They sat together under a tree, talking quietly. That evening, Charity addressed the students. "Discipline is not punishment, it's direction." When she finished, the hall erupted in applause. As she walked away, Charity felt peace, not the loud pride she once loved, but a deep peace that came from knowing she had become better. From a lazy, rude city girl to a disciplined, kind woman. From shame to pride. From noise to purpose. Her story spread.
Charity did not let the praise get into her head. She remembered where she came from. Years later, Charity returned to Sapele House, not as a student, but as a guest speaker. She stood at the gate and smiled, memories flooding back. The fear, the tears, the growth. Mrs. Ofomanta walked toward her, slower now, but still strong. "You came back," she said. "I had to," Charity replied. "You changed my life." Mrs. Ofomanta shook her head. "No, you chose to change." They sat together under a tree, talking quietly. That evening, Charity addressed the students. "Discipline is not punishment, it's direction." When she finished, the hall erupted in applause. As she walked away, Charity felt peace. Not the loud pride she once loved, but a deep peace that came from knowing she had become better. From a lazy, rude city girl to a disciplined, kind woman. From shame to pride. From noise to purpose. Her story spread. Parents shared it. Students talked about it. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was real. And somewhere in the crowd, a stubborn child listened, thinking, maybe I can change too. Because the truth is simple. No one is beyond growth. No one is too spoiled to learn. And sometimes the hardest decisions are the ones that save us. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this story with someone who needs it.